Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about The White Tiger. First of all, before I get started with the review, I just want to say I know in the last video I said that this was an Indian film. I only mentioned that because I know that this film was based on a book that was written by an Indian, and it also takes place in India and has Indian characters, all that sort of stuff. But it's actually an American film. It's listed as an American production under ARRAY, and it's also directed by an American, or an Iranian American I should say, but American nonetheless. So I just wanted to open up with that disclaimer in case anyone else was wondering. As I mentioned, the film is based on a book also called The White Tiger, and centers around a character named Balaram. Balaram is a poor man who lives in the neighborhood of Laxmangarh in India, and we see his journey growing up from being a child to a young adult to of course being a full-grown adult. We see all sorts of things happening to him that colors his perception of society as he grows older. We see him start off as idealistic and hopeful as a child. He learns English faster than any of his fellow students do in school, and he's even motivated by his teachers to further pursue his dreams as he gets older. He's even regarded by one of his teachers as being a white tiger. This white tiger being an animal that appears only once in a generation, and Balaram is regarded by such as this teacher, which motivates him to pursue his education. However, his family is unable to continue paying for his education after his father goes into debt and eventually dies from tuberculosis, and Balaram is forced to work at a bakery or some sort of shop at the beginning, and he does this for a good chunk of his life and just keeps going on with that until it gets to the point where he's an adult and he's pretty much accepted his fate in society at that point in the movie. However, Balaram is a man of opportunity, and he always jumps on one whenever he sees it, and we see this happen whenever this man who his father owed a lot of money to, who's regarded as the stork visits town one day with his son, who is visiting the neighborhood for a 6-month stint, and Balaram realizes that he has an opportunity to apply for a job as a driver for that son. And from there, the rest of the story develops as Balaram develops a relationship with the stork's son and the rest of his family while he tries to escape his situation of poverty, and we see him try to escape the social caste system that is present in India as he tries to climb the way to the ladder of success. I will say that Adarsh Gorav's performance as Balaram in this movie was fantastic. He does an amazing job of playing a character that's had enough of society, and he wants the best out of his life, and he'll do anything it takes to get his way to the top. It doesn't start out that way, but over the course of the movie, as his character develops, you see all of these terrible things happen to him. He constantly gets kicked down and beaten up, and he just feels like crap the entire time, but somehow he's still able to put a smile on his face and carry on like the good, faithful servant he is. He also serves as the film's narrator, and you really get to see what his psyche is like in every moment of every scene that he's in. We see all the thoughts, or rather hear the thoughts that are going on in his head, what he really thinks of that particular situation. So the audience is always filled in on what he's really going through in his head, while it also leaves out a few details here and there and leaves us to guess maybe there's something more to him than we're not really realizing. And indeed, throughout the film, we get to see Balaram change a lot. His character goes from being treated brutally to him doing brutal things to other people, so it's a complete 180 in terms of character transformation. He does brutal things to other people. Like, he'll just betray someone without even thinking about it. He'll out someone's Islamic faith to their boss and just completely cut them out of that person's job, even though he was a faithful servant for 20 years. Just, nope. You're gone. Sorry. See you later. Oh man, Balaram was brutal in this movie. And I don't mean that in a bad way, of course. I mean in a fantastic backstabbing kind of way. But at the same time, you root for him because you know right from the beginning exactly what he's gone through as a character, and you really want him to succeed in his journey. Of course, there are other characters that are involved in his journey as well. The stork's son, who I mentioned earlier, is a big part of that. He's a savvy businessman who returns home to his native village in India for a 6-month trip visiting his family, but as the film progresses in the story, you get to see him becoming less interested in going back in America and wanting to stick more to the family business that he has in India. Ashok is more level-headed compared to the rest of his family. He treats treats Balaram with respect, kindness, and even friendliness on a few occasions, as they spend a lot of time together, they share a lot of stories with each other, they even do some activities together, and you very much get the sense that he's like a black sheep in his family, that he's definitely not the same as everyone else. And indeed, because he was Americanized due to his education that he had in New York, it makes sense from a story point of view. Not only this, but he's accompanied by his girlfriend Pinky Madam, who's played by Priyanka Chopra Jonas, and in my opinion, I think she was the best character in the movie aside from Balaram, of course. Unlike Ashok, who bends and wills to his family over the course of the story, Pinky Madam is much more headstrong than him by comparison, and always starts arguments with Ashok's family throughout the story because she actually grew up in America and has an American mentality and way of life. So when she comes to India to accompany Ashok, she's very much shocked and appalled at what she sees in India as far as the social caste system is concerned. And she's always starting fights with Ashok's family and always fights for Balaram's right for a better way of life. And Ashok's family is always trying to shut her down, and Ashok is caught in the middle and trying to stifle everything and make everything as calm as possible. But that only makes the mood between all the other characters even worse, as it makes him look weak to his family as well as his girlfriend Pinky. Watching this movie, you really get a sense that you're like a fly on the wall watching India's social caste system in action. It has a damning portrayal of the whole poverty situation in general that's present throughout India, specifically in the rural parts, as opposed to the coastal areas, which you see more of in the beginning and the end when Balaram has already completed his journey. The whole slave and master mentality is explored as well in the dialogue. Although Balaram is brought on as a driver for the stork's son, he's also brought on to do many other things. As we quickly find out, he's actually the second in command, or rather the second driver, as opposed to the head driver, who is the Islamic guy that I mentioned from earlier. Balaram does everything from dusting off furniture to massaging the stork's feet. Pretty much any humiliating act you can think of, Balaram is responsible for it. Although you feel terrible for him going through this, you know that there's going to be an eventual payoff and that karma does come to collect at some point. It's very much an Indian film in the way that it's portrayed. From all the dirty streets of Laxmangarh to the royal mansions that you see Balaram working in, all the cash money that's being handed out to government officials and military officers, all of these things that you see with open eyes, it just really goes to show that India's caste system is the way it is because, according to Balaram, the working class sets it out that way from the outset. They have this expectation that they're going to be a slave and that there's no way to escape the quote-unquote the rooster coop. And this rooster coop is an overarching metaphor that's present throughout the story. Basically this idea that everyone naturally wants to take charge of their life and they want to be in control of their particular situation and their territory, sort of like a rooster in real life. If you know how a rooster acts, you know that they're very territorial creatures and don't like other people at all encroaching in their territory. However, once you put that collection of roosters in the coop and you don't give them any freedom whatsoever, then they kind of eventually just accept their situation that they're in and they kind of try to enjoy life as much as possible with the lack of freedom that they have until they eventually die. Obviously not the best way to live, but you see that up close and personal throughout the story, and you just all the dirty, grimy scenery that's present in these situations, it just really amplifies how terrible of a situation Balaram is caught up in, as well as everyone else around him. It is absolutely unapologetic in its presentation of India as a society at large, and I really love the film for that. The white tiger, of course, is the main metaphor of the series as well. This idea that this animal only comes once in a generation, in this case it's obviously Balaram, because we see his journey from beginning to end, and we see how his character changes as he goes from a meek servant to someone who is getting dissatisfied with the situation, and then we see his character boil over and he starts to resist, and eventually he actively breaks the chains and goes about trying to take control of his life. But of course, it's more than just taking control of the situation. He can't just jump on anything as soon as it comes his way. He has to wait for the right moment to strike, and whenever that opportunity is vulnerable and he knows with 100% certainty that he can take it, He leaps on it, and then bam, he's off to the races. I love that they show Balaram as a more opportunistic character rather than someone who whines and mopes and complains all the time and he feels sorry for himself. Of course, we do see a few of that in the film as well, but it never really lingers on the depression that he's going through. It more focuses on the depression that other characters are going through around him, and he tries to be that positive figure in their lives while scheming to overcome his own situation. Overall, The White Tiger is an absolute masterpiece. I've never read the book, so I can't say how faithful it is as an adaptation, but as a work of art, it is an absolute triumph. If the caste system in India is really how it's portrayed like it is in this film, then I feel really bad for the little guy that's caught up in any sort of situation that's similar to what we see in this film. A lot of people think that The White Tiger is satirical, and I do agree to a certain extent, but I find it to be way more scathing and damning than the average satire would be. To me, this is more of a venom-laced drama. You can't get any more realistic than this kind of film. There's no way that Hollywood would be able to produce something like this. Sure, it was made by an American company, but when you watch this film, you get an absolute sense that not only is this not Hollywood, but it is not Bollywood either. There's nothing glamorous about this movie at all. Everything from people lying on the side of the streets to playing poker in their little huts and cots that they have set up in a parking garage where they live in. All these little things show how dark and depressing India's society is, and we see all of these things through Balaram's eyes, and I just love how dark it was while also being comedic where it needed to be. I personally regard The White Tiger as the first great film of the year. Anyone who has a Netflix subscription, anyone at all, you have to see this movie. Although a good chunk of it is spoken in Hindi and you will definitely need subtitles to watch those parts, you will definitely not be disappointed when you watch this film. I found it very motivating in a way because when we see Balaram overcome a struggle one after the next, you feel really good about it because he's always finding ways to overcome his situation and he does his best to help other characters along the way. But man, does he ever have to do some savage things to get on top. Like I said, he is absolutely brutal at certain parts of the movie. So although you're happy for him by the time the film ends, at the same time you know that he had to do some really bad things in order to get his way to the top. So you don't feel 100% at ease, but at the end it was very much satisfactory. I didn't feel bad for anyone that crossed paths with Balaram. Anyways guys, that's going to be my review of The White Tiger. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part where next time I review the drama film Penguin Bloom. Bye bye!